Okay, I've always been fascinated with human sexuality, and you've stated in the past that human sexual energy is very similar to source energy, and I
Well,
want to know if you can expand on that.
everything that is physical can be an extension of source energy. But sexuality is a subject where many people, without even knowing it, do the things that are necessary in order to tune into source energy. In other words, you get single-minded about your subject. You sort of set everything else aside. You're not worrying about a whole lot of other things. You focus better, usually, not always. You focus better. And then it is more empowered when there are two of you focused. And so as you have the experience of focusing with a singular intent, you tune in to something that allows you connection. It's such an interesting thing that through that engaging in sexuality, there is that orgasmic experience, which is the true alignment or attunement experience. And it is also interesting that it is also the perpetuation of your species, which speaks to the true creativity of the physicalness. And so Jerry, for many years, he was teaching a course called Turning Thoughts to Things. And he was using as his textbook a book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. And there was a chapter in this book called Sexual Transmutation. And Jerry always skipped that chapter because it was embarrassing to him to have this conversation with an audience. He wasn't sure that he could make them understand it the way he meant to understand it. But that's what that conversation was about in that book. It's about when you have had an experience where you have allowed alignment and had a personal experience of what alignment feels like, then you can apply that to other things. And so it's the focus, it's the single-mindedness, it's the interest that really is what that is all about. Apply focus to anything without adding contradiction to it, and you're going to achieve that alignment, and you're going to have, in a relatively short period of time, an exhilarating experience that confirms that alignment that you have accomplished.
So why do we humans make such a big stink about it when we all clearly are so fascinated with it? Why is it so?
Well, we don't think that that's different from the way humans feel about most of their emotions. Most people are not utilizing emotion as any sort of guidance tool. Most people are observing and trying to get agreement with others. So many people are guarded about so many things. And we stated earlier today, this is really the answer to this important question that you've posed to us here, that when you are focused here in the physical experience, and you are needing a condition to be altered so that you can have a better feeling response to that condition, you're in trouble because you can't control the conditions. And so that's why your world gets all balled up in wars and walls and bombs and trying to control behavior, because so many people really believe they want to feel good. They innately want to feel good. And when they look at that and do feel good, and look at that and do feel good, and look at that and don't feel good, we understand why their knee-jerk reaction would be, we need to control that. We need to control that so that we can feel better. But in time, you have to acknowledge that impossible control just wads you all up and keeps you from your joy. And when you discover that you have the personal resources to come into the alignment with who you really are, with your own desire and with your joy, whether anybody else is doing anything about it or not, then you have discovered what unconditional love is, what the true meaning of unconditional alignment is, you see. So most people are extremely well-meaning. They all were when they first got here. Some get further and further from it as they really believe that they need to control things for their own sake and for the sake of others. But the more they push against, because when you say no to something, law of attraction thinks you said yes to it. When you say no to something, it's like saying yes to the thing you don't want. So there's a war against drugs, and a war against poverty, and a war against teenage pregnancy, and a war against terrorism, and a war against, and a war against, and a war against, and all of those things getting bigger. Because the more of you focus and the more of you push against, then the more of those things exist in your world, but not necessarily in your world. Just because something is rampant in your civilization doesn't mean that it has to be expressing itself in your experience. It all depends upon what you are giving your attention to, you see. So it's interesting in a step 5 conversation The true route to the peaceful world that you want is through the war that you are now so much living. Because as you see that, you desire a different world. And so you launch a peaceful world, you launch a cooperative world into your vortex, and all those that are being born come with that in mind. All of us who are non-physically focused hold that, and that's why there will never be a time, it is our absolute promise to you, when what you think are the negative influences of your world will dominate. That will never be true. Because the most that could happen is that some of you, maybe even a lot of you, can pinch yourself off and disallow yourselves from receiving the well-being that's all lined up for you. But you're croaking constantly. Isn't that a wonderful thing? You're re-emerging into pure positive energy. You're coming into alignment. Those like you are finding it in another way, through meditation or through just wanting to feel good. And the new ones being born all know it. And the animals all